I didn't know that some of the speakers they were like doing the the presentation in Portuguese. Okay, I wasn't ready for that. I can speak Portuguese, right? By the way, I'm a Brazilian, so people sometimes they see my face, right? They feel like I'm not gonna be able to speak Portuguese, but I'm ready here. So I'm bringing today a very interesting topic, right? I know that a lot of people are very concerned about the future, about what's going to happen in our career, right, as designers. So let me see here if you want to interact here in the chat. Let me know how many designers we have or how many people from Brazil as well. Uh, cool. All right, so let's go. So, designing the career on this new age. So, let me do a quick intro about myself. So, I'm Juno. I'm founder of DOJO Plus. It's a platform that I created to connect uh, martial arts school, pretty much like a jiu-jitsu schools and students. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so I'm doing this for about 10 years. And also, I'm the Friends of Figma Atlanta leader, like Bruno is doing a great job in Portugal, right? So I've been working a lot in my life, so I have a lot of different projects that I work it. I will share a couple of them, but today I want to focus on the future, right? What we can be ready and prepare our careers. Okay, I was reading this phrase a few weeks ago, and it's about the AI, right? So, no man is better than a machine. And this may be true, right? Because if you see ChatGPT or whatever, Claude or all these tools out there, probably we are not going to be able to storage all the information they can or be faster than any AI to answer a question, of course. But there's a big but on that, right? Because no man is better than a machine, and no machine is going to be better than a man with a machine, right? So if you reflect on that, it's pretty much what's going to happen, right? Right now, uh, we feel pretty empowered with AI tools, right? And I think if we learn how to use that better in our daily jobs, this is gonna enhance what we can deliver uh, to our clients, to our companies or whatever it is. Okay, cool. So that being said, I want to share a little bit of my timeline, right? So I moved it to Miami, right? So I started like a teaching at Ironhack. I think a lot of people from Europe maybe they know this boot camp, right? Because they are from Spain. So I've been teaching to Miami campus, and during the pandemic, I was teaching to a lot of campus in Europe as well. Um After that, I started like working in gaming, which is very strange because I don't play video games, right? So I think this is the the most funny story because I was like during the interview process, and one of the founders he asked me, "Do you play games?" I said, "No." "Do you have any kind of video games?" I said, "No." "Okay, but we are gonna hire you." And that was a pretty amazing time because I had an opportunity to work with a lot of talent people, people that work at Disney, Pixar, all these big companies, and also in a lot of gaming studios. So we start building this platform. One of the things that I was in charge was the design system and also a couple of other projects. There's one project that I was working on that time. That is the garden controls. It's different from the parental controls because I think that was the starting point of the project, by the way, because family structures nowadays is a little bit different. So we made a very interesting project, by the way, and we even have a patent on this project. After that, I start like a trying to find other things, right, like to do, because gaming is not my passion, but also in some point, like a building games is not an easy thing. So the company couldn't raise money anymore, so like they pretty much shut down the platform. But was pretty cool. The time I stayed like a 2.5 years. Actually, I was the first designer, the last designer of the company. And after this, I was like, okay, so let me try to, look for another job. So I started like applying like a crazy, even nowadays, right? Like I started like applying, and I was like, okay, so maybe, especially in the US market, right? It's a little bit different. I think we had a lot of layoffs since the pandemic. So it's a couple of years already. And on that time, I was reflecting. I was like, okay, so I will try to work on my side project and make that like a kind of a full-time mission right now, right? So what I can learn from, like understanding real problems from like a small business. And that's why I started like working with a lot of the jiu-jitsu studios in Brazil and also in the US, right? So one thing that headhunter in US shared with me, he told me, hey, it's like if you see the job market right now, there's much less jobs available, at least in the US market, right? I'm talking about comparing to a couple of years, which means that even if they hire everybody, they fill all the positions, a lot of people they're going to be unemployed on this market right now. And this is like, of course, companies are understanding that there's a big shift in the market, right? So AI and automations, things that I started learning by myself a lot of things. And I believe all the designers in the market should start looking into new things. Right nowadays, we're talking a lot about MCP servers, and there's a lot of things that you can accomplish once you connect that and you understand how to use that. And yeah, I see a lot of like a potential in the market. So because the market changed, I started changing by myself, right? I was like, okay, so what should I do to, uh, like a kind of like a refresh a little bit my career and think about what is going to be the future of this market. So I started with real data to understand what's the real problem of like a jiu-jitsu schools, and I start to try to test, iterate, right? Oh, maybe I'm gonna build, start building this or that, and maybe this is not working. So you try to find the right way to solve a problem. From that moment, I started building a lot of different things to the jiu-jitsu schools, right? Since I start understanding their problems, they have problems on charging memberships, they have problems to make uh, better websites or better social media posts, or even managing campaigns to bring a new students, right? So all the websites that you see on the backgrounds are currently my clients and things that I built for them. So there's a lot of different projects that I start building, which brought me, a lot of knowledge actually on understanding that maybe you're taking too much time doing stuff that actually it doesn't matter for people, and also it doesn't matter for the business owner. So I think this is something that sometimes if you're working a large corporation, and I had this problem as well, right? I think the feedback loop sometimes takes too long, right? And sometimes you are focusing on wrong, not in the right problems for that moment. Okay. So having this in mind, also I had a great opportunity also to connect with one of some of the legends, right, of this sport, right? I don't know if you guys may know those people. The first one is Rickson Gracie. If you don't know this person, He pretty much was like one of the legends of the Gracie family. Also, he is the guy, you know, the movie The Hulk, right? Like this guy here, the Finn guy here. He was the Hulk, and Hickson was like teaching him to breathe, right? So it's pretty cool. Here is like a Vitor Belfort, like also another legend of MMA. So I did a lot of things to him as well. And here, the last one is Horion Grace. If you don't know him, like he basically created the UFC, right? So he sold the UFC to like the brand, right? Like to Dana White and all the investors later on. So I think once you get like a, you know, like a get out and try to solve problems, things start happening, right? And you start connecting with people, and it's pretty cool. Uh, so thinking about that, there's two concepts that I want to share with you guys. That is the skill flux and surge skilling, right? Because nowadays there's like a this process. There's like a lot of things are changing, right? Like so, for example, before you could go to a university, right? Like I want to be a doctor, I want to be an attorney or something like that. And probably the knowledge that you get on 5 6 years studying what's going to happen, this could last 20 years, right? Or 10 years or something like that. But nowadays, people are talking that probably the time that is going to last a new kind of topic of knowledge that you get, maybe it's going to last 2 years only, right? And means that, for example, if we learn about like variables, right, or we learn about MCP servers, these are kind of knowledge that is going to only be relevant for the next 1 or 2 years, right? And after that's going to be another topic, right? So this makes the market and people pretty overwhelming, right? And very anxious, right, about what's going to happen in the future, right? And uh, and another thing is that I was reading that 70% of all the things that we are doing right now uh, is going to be irrelevant in 5 years, right? As a designer, so means that, and we can pretty much see that this is going to happen, right? So if you think about uh, brand, like a kit or like whatever, right? Like a design system file that you can download on the community. There's like a pretty much a lot of AIs that can generate that really fast, right? In seconds, pretty much. Or even like a thinking about pairing typography or like a building a color palette or like a testing that color palette for accessibility, things like this. If you think about this, is going to be almost automated, right, in the future. Of course, there's a lot of like things that we can go deeper on this topic because there's a lot of the craft of all the things that, of course, designers they're going to be important in a couple of like areas. But I think we have to be aware that things are going to change, and we need to be prepared to start learning new things, right? So if we don't stop and organize our routine to understand what's going to happen in the future, it's going to be pretty challenging to us. Okay, so what means this number, right? Uh, can anybody guess what is this number means? You can post here in the chat. I think I have a delay in the chat, by the way, Bruno. So I'm not sure if people can uh, type here because I don't see like all the information. Okay, here. Okay, cool. So let me keep going. So this number, it doesn't mean that it's like the desktop size, right? Like a lot of people remember the desktop size that you can see on Figma, right? When you add a new frame. But actually, this is the a number that represents uh, the minutes of a day, right? We have 1440 minutes a day, right? And if you take this as a challenge and open your phone right now, uh, you can tell me, or you can just keep to yourself, uh, how much time you are spending on social media every day. Probably you're spending a lot, right? And that's why once I figured it out about that, I decided, this is from last year, I decided that I will be spending only 1% of my day on social media, which means it's going to be 14 minutes a day, right? Uh, and uh, and that's another thing, right? Like it's just like a really cheap dopamine for us, right? Like for humans. So sometimes like you could be spending your time in a much better way, like reading, studying, or doing things, or even like taking care of yourself, right? So think about that and try to like reduce or re-educate yourself how you're spending your time, because that's the thing, that this is the beginning of the change, right? Like when you start understanding how you're like allocating your time on an everyday basis, you're gonna feel that, oh, okay, I think I don't need to stay 60 minutes or even more on Instagram, right? I could do something better with that time. Okay, so thinking about that, there's another ratio, right? That I was reading in a book, that is the ultra learning. Uh, I won't recommend you to read all the book, by the way. Yeah, I was just reading a couple of different parts, and I was like, I actually I got the book at the library, so I was just reading a little bit. So I just uh, returned the book already. But I think is this ratio is very interesting, right? Like because you can spend 1 hour learning something new, and after that you put in practice, right? You take that information and you try to apply that information at your job or whatever it is, or your side project, whatever you're working. I think it's a good way that you can see if this is going to work or not. So my recommendation, right, to put all this information in practice is like try to define some goals, right? Like what you're trying to learn, right? Like maybe like when I was talking with all the jiu-jitsu school, I was like, okay, maybe I need to learn how to do digital marketing, right? Because that's the thing. Being a designer, a lot of time you spend, like hours trying to make the perfect design. But once you take that design and you have to make like a bring real customers to a small business, it doesn't matter, right? You're spending a lot of times that on things that actually you have to test, you have to create different options, you have to change the copy, you have to do a lot of stuff. So if you try to define, okay, I will learn digital marketing, you're gonna see that maybe like your choices as a designers, they are wrong, right? And that's a good thing actually as well, because you start like being more flexible on your decisions. Try to use that micro learning process. So every day, this is something that I created on my routine. So in the morning, I go to the gym, I have my breakfast, and before I start working, right? Like usually people start working at 9, I start at 8 a.m. I start learning something new, right? So I spend 1 hour, reading a book, or like watching a new tutorial or video, whatever it is. So in the morning, your mind is pretty fresh. So I think it's more valuable if you spend that time, trying to, absorb new information. So after this, like YouTube, I learn a lot of things from YouTube. I use 2x speed, because it speed up our process, and do experiments, right? Like you have to try to take like a small projects that sometimes not, it's just to build something that you see if it's gonna work or not, right? And based on that, you're gonna have, like, like a building the confidence that you can take that new skill and take to your work, right? But if you don't have that time to learn, test things like this, you will feel stuck, right, in your career, for sure. And this is gonna happen because the market is changing so fast right now that if we don't do that by ourselves, and you try to rely on, okay, I will do like a different course or something like that, it's gonna nobody will be able to create a new course so fast on the evolution that we are living right now, right? If you think about it, right, like every day you're gonna have like a something new coming up, right? So I have a okay. So some people already mentioned here. Okay, yes, I felt the same, right? Like a draining all your energy, right? All the social media, right? Twitter, all this stuff, right? Okay, yeah. So try to avoid that, or try to use the way that I'm trying to do right now, right? Like, okay, this is a tool that you are using, right? Like to connect with people, see things on the market, what's happening, and like this is like a tool that you have to use. But if you set a timer to use that, it's gonna be way more productive, right? Okay, so another thing is like building this. Uh, experiments that like a build, and sometimes I set a timer on my agenda and I build like I do a hackathon by myself, right? Like I do, okay, so I have like 3 hours and I have to build that idea that I had in my mind. So I just go and I try to execute, right? And by the end, that's the thing, maybe it's not going to be perfect, but at least you're going to learn the best way. Oh, I think I spend a lot of time on this or that. Maybe I should be like spending time on different part or different aspect of this project, right? So this is a good way that is going to improve your skills. Okay. uh, Another thing that I want to share, after applying for a lot of jobs also, I was thinking this is useless as well, right? Because there's a lot of companies that you don't want to work, right? If you think about, sometimes you are just working because, oh, okay, because they pay well for you. But like uh, I will recommend you, and this is something that I did by myself, it's like making a list of industries or companies that you want to work, because this is gonna clarify a little bit also how you're gonna network, how you're gonna apply for jobs, how you're gonna write your cover letter. This is gonna answer a lot of questions, right? And you're not gonna feel lost, right, in the process of looking for a new job. So uh, I took a time to redesign, by the way, um, uh, Patagonia website. If you know like Patagonia, I really like the brand. They have like a really nice like a custom service, and they have this pretty awesome magazine that really translate the Patagonia brand and feel. But once you go to the website itself is just a blog, right? It doesn't feel like Patagonia, right? So if you want to scan this QR code later, you're gonna read this case study that I posted, right, online on Medium, and after that, it was pretty fun because Patagonia team actually reached me out. Hey, Juno, it's pretty cool what you built. Could you present that to the entire team? And I had like this big opportunity to, like meet all the designers at Patagonia, and I did like a presentation of my case study for them. They were like super happy, and I stay actually 2 hours with them because they were like showing a lot of like a challenge on their product, right? Like what we have to change, what we have to like improve on the experience. It was a very interesting moment. They were like weren't like hiding on that time, and that's why like there was no job to apply for Patagonia for product designers on that time, but was a really good way, like to meet people, show a little bit of your talents, and like skills that you have on this or that, right? Because I did a lot of like things building the components, structure, right? Like how you're gonna use that, spacing, all this stuff. So also translating the brand through the web in a better way. Okay, so feel free to read that, and if you have questions or comments, feel free to comment. I will be happy to answer and listen different feedback. Okay. Uh, okay, so let me go here to this. Another thing I'm reading here. I'm not sure if you have questions here. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just don't. That's the thing. If you don't have like a notification for social media, you're not gonna go all the time there, right? Okay, so this is something that I learned actually at school, at my kids' school, right? They go to school, and usually the teachers, the kindergarten teachers, they invited the parents to talk about different topics, right? And they brought the parents, and one night I was there, and we were like reading an article together, and this article was talking about technology, right? And how technology impact society in many different ways, right? So this technology, by the way, on that time, about the from the article, was the X, right? Like a pretty much like a very simple tool, right? That people use. But on that time, that article is a pretty old article. The technology was bringing that to people, right? And it can be, it can feel silly if you think about it, but the idea of the article was to bring the discussion about how this technology will impact, and this impact could be in three different ways, right? So the first, it was the good, right? What actually this technology can be good to the society and to humans, right? And think about, of course, probably you're thinking about AI, how this technology will impact, and what is the good things about that. So for this, think about, you can use the X and you can build a house, you can build, like a furniture, you can do a lot of things with that, right? That's a good part of doing this. But also, there's the bad side of the tool, right? So if you think about the bad side of the tool, uh, yes, what you can do with your with an axe, right? Maybe you're already figuring out that, right? You can kill someone, right? This is a bad thing of using this technology, right? And think about how you can use this technology, right? How the impact of AI on this current world that we live, right? So there's many things, even to the environment, right? Like if you think about how many servers, data centers that we need to keep going to run all these AI tools right now, it's pretty much insane. I don't know if like AI is gonna take our jobs first, or we are gonna destroy the environment before that, right? So I think this is a question that we have to, reflect a little bit. And the last thing is the stupid part of that, right? So if you take an axe, and the most stupid thing is like you can, like cut your leg, right? And this is a kind of like a very common accident, right? And that's it, right? You can hurt yourself with that too. And think about, what is the stupid applications that you are doing with AI right now. There's a lot of things, right? If you think about that, every prompt that you are sending to AI, it costs, right? Like a plastic bottle, right? They the all these people that's like studying there a little bit more than me for sure. They're like every prompt, like if you do like the calculation, it's like a destroying the environment like a plastic bottle, right? For every prompt, that's the average. I don't know right now, but that's the thing. If you take AI and you're like and I showed here right in the beginning, and you're stealing the art from other artists, right? And you're creating the Disney character, whatever it is. This, I think, is the stupid aspect of using the tool, right? Because there's no gain for people, right? Is there's no what exactly you're doing with that, right? Just you're having fun, but it's actually you're not building anything good for society, right? So I think this is something that you have to reflect a little bit. Okay, so that was a little bit of the things that I want to bring to you to reflect, understand how you can, like reshape actually your routine. And to do that, there's like this project that called nownow.com. I don't know if you guys know about this project, but it's a very interesting project where the creator of this Now project, he recommends everybody to build a Now page on your website, right? So pretty much, if you're a designer, you have your slash now. I have actually, by the way, to update my new now page because I'm working with new stuff. But actually, I added on my agenda to at least like every quarter to change my now page. I was like doing a draft already about that, and it's a good way to like show what exactly you're working on, and also like you can help other people as well, right? So it's a good way to connect and see like how people can collaborate and work together. Okay, I think yeah, that's it what I have to bring to you guys.